Thank you for spending some of your valuable time with us today. This is The Art of Can. It's not really a podcast, at least not in the traditional sense. It's more of a content and insights experiment around the nexus of mindset, experience, and the plasticity of reality. Each episode features everyday people with extraordinary experiences. Each of these people with these experiences has put those experiences that they have to use in order to inhabit can as a state of being for them, a way that they live. My name is Steve Hirschberger, and the work that I do surrounding the art of can is, I think, central to my purpose for being here. It's the center stone that keeps everything else in my life either in place or properly supported as whatever I'm working on settles into place. Can really is a state of being. It's a way to live. Our world, and for many of us, our state of being is fragmented. It's isolated. It's full of turmoil, regret, fear, anxiety. We see it manifest everywhere. Road rage, shootings, rudeness, distraction, addiction, cyberbullying, canceling, and so on. The Persian poet Rumi once said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." Now, this isn't just a clever saying. It aligns with nature and science. Everything is, in fact, connected. As it is now is not how it has to be. In this series, we will explore the Hermetic concept of as within, so without, and the Stoic concept of what is in the way becomes the way. You see, in life, really think about it. All we have is the ability to choose. And that is what the Art of Can is about. Choice. Ready? Okay, let's go. Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome an individual that I got to meet earlier this year through actually his father, Sterling Hawkins, to The Art of Can. This is episode 3 of season 1, and it is properly titled The Art of Can, No Matter What. Sterling is a best-selling author. He's an entrepreneur and a sought-after speaker who just got back from Budapest, as I understand, which means he's globally recognized as a leading expert in organizational culture. So, welcome, Sterling.
Steve, great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad to have you here, man. This is something I've wanted to do for a while. I've followed your stuff, and I've become a fan specifically for 2 reasons, which is where we're going to start. Let's start with no matter what. What does that mean?
So no matter what actually started as a personal mantra for me. I got kind of lucky early in my career. I founded a company with my dad and we sold it, became part of this like multi-billion-dollar unicorn, which these days I feel like every other startup is worth $1 billion somehow. But back in the early 2000s, there were 2, maybe 3 of them, and we were one of them. And so it was like we're on this rocket ship of success. And somewhat long, dramatic story short, when the housing market collapsed, our investment dried up and the whole company fell apart. So $500 million in raised capital was just gone. And my identity was so caught up in the organization, where we were going. I thought we were going to go public and I would cash in and I'd humbly crown myself the next Steve Jobs. When the company collapsed, so did I. And when we ultimately bottomed out, it was either I've had enough of this game. I'm going to call this whole life thing a little bit short, or I'm going to do the things that scared me no matter what. And frankly, it started small. Like, I'm going to get out of bed tomorrow no matter what. I'm going to call my creditors no matter what. I'm going to go to the gym no matter what. As I got psychologically stronger, the things got a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And then people started to join me. And I realized that this mantra I had to dig myself out of this hole wasn't just something that worked for me. It worked for everybody. And so it's become a little bit of a movement, a rally cry to take people and organizations from where they are in this place of uncertainty and chaos and reach that next level, not only performance, but fulfillment as well.
Do you think that you talk about performance and fulfillment? Are those 2 things 2 sides of the same coin, or are they elements that need to be balanced? Or are they uniquely separate, or can they be uniquely separate?
Yeah, I think they can exist as separate things, but not in a very sustainable way. I
Uh-huh.
think we get the most power, presence, performance, and fulfillment when we can align ourselves, mind, body, spirit, so that the direction we're going, personally and professionally, is aligned with ourselves, our lives, and what's ultimately important to us. And when we can stack those things up, they're very much two sides of the same coin. Where you find performance at the same place that you'll find fulfillment. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. In fact, to follow up on that, Sterling, is so let's think about the startup Sterling, the one that was embedded in the identification of that company. And is the essence of that person the same as the essence of the Sterling Hawkins that is Sterling Hawkins today?
Yeah. I would say that our essence is always the same. Human beings are the only species, the only living thing that actively can prohibit their growth. Everything else is growing naturally. Plants, animals, you name it, they're all growing because that's part of life. It's that overused saying, we're either growing or we're dying.
Hold on. Let me back you up because you just said something that I think is really important. Can you repeat that? Human beings are.
The only living thing that actively prevents their own growth.
What do you mean by that?
We get in our own way. Where there are opportunities, where there are spaces where we can realize greater potential, human beings will actively get in our own way and stop, turn around, avoid it, deny it's even happening. And so we end up putting ourselves in this box of performance. And oftentimes we look out into the world and saying, well, it's because of my relationships, or it's because of the global circumstances or the economic condition. Or even worse, we say, well, it's because of our personality. I'm just not the kind of person that can do that.
Mm.
And so it ends up putting ourselves and our performance in a box. And it's very hard to move forward when we have these external obstacles where perceptionally they're standing in our way.
So in large part, we're playing kabuki theater.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
we have this script that has either been given to us
Mm-hmm.
or we've written it because we look around and we say, my essence, who I really am may not be accepted in this environment. And so I need to copy or emulate what these others are doing. So is that what you're talking about?
I am. Yeah. I mean, it really is a question of identity. When we tie our identity to external things, how much money we have, what our title is on the business card, limited kinds of personality. Like for me, one of my big ones was I'm not a good public speaker. I'm just not the kind of person that can do it. Kind of
Come
ironic
on.
given what I'm
Come
doing.
on.
But when we tie our identity to those things, we think those things define us, it literally holds us back. And so I would say our essence or our ethos is always the same. It's built into us as human beings. I'd even argue we're born with it. But
Yeah.
what happens is we lose track of it. We lose sight of it. We lose trust in it. And we start to put stock in, we start to trust in these external things that are just inherently limiting.
When you've traveled around the world and you've talked to probably as many or more business professionals than anybody I know, and I know a fair amount of people.
Yeah.
And is it fair to say that, I don't know, you've talked to tens of thousands, 20, 30,000, 50,000 people? Have you spoken to that many? Maybe it's 100,000. I don't know, but lots and lots of people.
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands of people. Is there a sense globally in the people that you've talked to that essence is either largely intact, misplaced, don't know where it is, or covered up either in part or in total?
By and large, globally, I would say, yeah, it's been lost, it's been forgotten, it's been buried, and understandably so, right? There are seemingly more circumstances in the world than maybe ever before. We've got economic uncertainty, global instability, political unrest, AI is transforming not just our businesses, but our lives. And it's almost like the things that we see in the world are becoming less reliable. I'll give you an example. I was looking on Instagram the other day and I saw this video of a political leader speaking. And I question, is this real? Or is this just AI? It's almost like the things that we're literally seeing with our own eyes can no longer be believed. And as the future becomes not only more unknown, but we can believe less of the things that we're literally seeing, it becomes more and more important to trust in our own essence, trust in our own intuition to be able to navigate the world ahead. And that's something that has not been the case in recent history, maybe all of history, because we can look outside, trust what's happening, and take next steps forward in a very logical, rational way. There are not many people and companies and leaders that are able to tap into that essence to be able to navigate ahead from this internal standpoint versus one that's kind of based in the external, if you follow me.
Well, yes and no. I
Yeah.
mean, let's think back, because look back in history. So, for instance, in World War II,
Mm-hmm.
the Germans, when they were on their heels,
Mm-hmm.
were still flying propaganda leaflets and dropping them into contested territory, saying all sorts of things that simply were not true. But you pick up the piece of paper and you read it and you look around and things are pretty grim, and you hear all the shelling and you're like, okay, well, the devil that I know is better than the devil I don't know. Right. So there's, to some degree, there's been that, but it just so happens that we live in a world of ubiquitous immediacy for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And the whole goal is to reduce friction in everything we do, which reduces also cognitive load, which
Mm.
stops us from thinking, reasoning, and even contemplating, right?
Yeah.
Contemplating about what it is that we should be doing, what we are doing, what we can do. And you can sit and watch the news and say, well, fuck, everything sucks, right?
Y- Yeah.
And then it ruins your day because you can't do a damn thing about it, right?
Right.
So we can, in large part, allow that external force to influence us,
Mm-hmm.
or we could follow the Hermetic principle as within, so without. And maybe through things like, no matter what, if one person changes themselves, and then two people change themselves, and then four, and then 8 and 16. There's Derek Sivers did a TED talk called How to Create a Movement. And there's this lone nut dancing in a field at a festival.
It's a good
You
one.
seen
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have.
And then the second one shows up, and then the third one shows up, and pretty soon there's three, and as Derek says, three is a crowd and three is news, and then three becomes five, becomes seven, becomes, and then pretty soon everybody else is going, well, shit, we can't be left out, so they go.
Yeah.
Point is that for things like what you're working on, that can we flip the tide of the water? Can we push out positivity and goodness in ways that are around us to create this chorus that perhaps is offsetting the dissonance that we see when we pick up our phones and doom scroll across Instagram and look at everybody that's created shit that isn't real, telling us why we should feel bad about our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, there's no question about it. Like, not only does the research point to that, but my own experience does as well. And I think an important distinction here is it's not just taught and told to the people around us. It happens, you get this ripple effect of change when it's demonstrated. Like the TED talk, when somebody's dancing in the field, he's not going around telling people to dance. He himself is doing it. And that's what's causing people to join. And, when I was bottomed out, one of the things that scared me most, I told you, was public speaking. And my sister went through this process with me. I ended up speaking in Singapore. Thankfully, it went well. I practiced really hard, even though I think I blacked out when the day came. but she saw me going through that and saw me change, and it lit something up in her. She told me it's okay to talk about this, but she was dealing with an eating disorder and body dysmorphia. And she said, you know what? If Sterling can do this, I'm watching this, I can do it too. And she became a world-class bodybuilder. And then, there were another couple of friends and then some people I'd met through business. And all of a sudden I'm watching this ripple effect of people inspiring each other, not scaring them, not even teaching them, but showing them I can do this in my life, in my work, and by my demonstration of it. That gives you validation or almost approval of like, oh yeah, I can do this too. And it starts in small ways and they just grow.
Wow. That is so true. So Sterling,
Yeah.
with that laid out there as kind of a foundational element, I got a couple questions for you.
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
go.
All right. So the first question is, so these are the questions, these handful of questions that I've asked 400 and something odd strangers, right?
Mhm.
And it's something that I've now decided I'm going to ask everybody that comes on the podcast because I think it's important. So the first question for you is, so Sterling, what would happen if you were not here?
It's a good question. I think the people that love me would miss me. And I also think that through the work that I've done, not just academically, but in showing them that they would really pick it up and carry the torch. That's what I think of in terms of no matter what. Like it's not just for me. We're passing the torch to people and companies so they can carry it into their own lives. And undoubtedly to me, if I was not here, my sister would pick it up and run with it.
So you preempted the second question, and that is what is happening or what should happen because you are here.
Yeah.
And these two questions are something that 12% of the 400, which is interesting because it wasn't just the 400 that was 12%. It was the 210. It was the 86. It was the 41. It was the 15. So roughly 12%
Yeah.
can answer that question effectively as well as the one we're going to get to. So what should happen or what is happening because you are here? You started that, but can you
Yeah.
elaborate on that a little bit more?
Yeah. Well, I think, I'm able to share some of the things that I wish somebody really showed me when I was bottomed out. Uh, had somebody been there when I had lost everything and had to move into my parents' house and my girlfriend broke up with me and it's like I'm living a depressing country song or something. I'm hitting every single beat of this thing. Literally every single beat.
Yeah.
If somebody from the outside, well, two things. One, if I was vulnerable enough to share with anybody what I was going through, they could have helped me. And two, that they had some principles or ideas or new perspectives that could have shifted where I was at. I don't think that rock bottom would have been nearly as hard and nearly as long. And I think what you bring up is a really important point that most people don't contend with of like, well, if you're not here, what happens? And intellectually, everybody knows that they're going to die. Everybody knows that as like a piece of information, but we don't really talk about it. We don't spend a lot of time with people on their deathbed. We don't spend a lot of time talking in society about death or what's going to happen in 3, 5 generations from now. We talk about things that are going to happen within our lifetime. And what makes a difference, I don't know if you've ever read the book called Die Wise by Stephen Jenkinson.
Uh,
Phenomenal book, changed my life. But one of the things that stood out to me in that book is knowing that you're going to die makes no difference. It's when you know you're dying, all of a sudden you reconcile that information, you alchemize what that means, you come to terms with the finitude of your own life. That's what changes you. And that's something that I've had the opportunity to confront at a deep level. I know you have. And when we take it from this idea to what does that mean for me, it's transformative.
it is. So the follow-up question is, and again, we'll get back to the 12%, but
Yeah.
Sterling,
Yeah.
today, what scares you? Anything?
What scares me? Usually, I've got this affliction now when if I find something that scares me, I'll either do it or talk about it.
Mhm.
And then that's with the acknowledgement that there is a difference between real danger, things that can hurt us not only physically but professionally. There is real
Yeah.
danger out there.
Yeah, like free soloing El Capitan, right?
Exactly. Real danger, not something that I should ever do. Uh, Provokes fear in me. And it crosses that line of like, okay, not only is it uncomfortable, but I have a real risk to my well being as part of that. Those things we can take off the table.
Well, considering that we'll stay firmly on level ground, right?
Yeah.
Does anything really scare you, given what you've been through?
I think the thing that scares me the most is not living into my full potential. But I do caveat with the fact that where fear drives you is the not the same place that potential is going to drive you. And so when I find myself
Well,
driven
hold on.
fear, yeah,
Again, this is number two, right? I'm hoping
yeah,
for three or four of these. But
yeah,
where fear drives you is not where potential drives you. Unpack that, please.
yeah. Fear is going to take you to a place of survival, of defensiveness, of oftentimes maintaining our own identity. And I've got this is kind of a cheesy analogy, but maybe it'll make sense. I do a lot of hiking up in the mountains here in the Rockies and all over the world. And, if a bear or something found me, fear strikes, I'm going to run away from that bear. But running away from that bear is very likely not going to take me to the top of that mountain, which is where potential would take me. If I'm focused on the opportunity, the potential, the growth, I'm going to climb that mountain. If I'm worried about the bear or running from the whatever it might be, I'm not going to make it to the top. So when I notice I'm doing something out of fear, out of compensating for being worried about something, I very intentionally try to notice that, first of all, and then set it aside and say, well, what is the real opportunity here? What potential would call me forth versus what fear do I want to run from?
Yeah. So fear really is that defensive limiting posture where you miss the opportunities because of perception. One of the, I want to go back to something we talked a little bit about earlier. We were talking about reality perception, and
Mm,
the thing that I was in a discussion not all that long ago with an individual that has a couple of PhDs in quantum physics,
mhm.
plasma physics as well as quantum
Yeah,
mechanics. So this
yeah,
kind of a smart person, and I was just trying to learn some things. And one of the things this person said to me is, which threw me for a curveball because I'm usually the one throwing the curveballs, and that was, "Do you know there's no such thing as the color green?"
yeah,
And I went, "Well, what do you mean?" This person was like, Green doesn't exist. Green exists as a collective understanding of a perception. And so what we see is actually on a time delay of about 8 milliseconds between what light rays hit your optics, your optical retina in your eye, which is upside down, and then your brain has to fill in that upside down image with the gaps that where your optical nerve is. And what it's recognizing and then in your brain is its basic best guess of what's out there.
yeah.
And so green doesn't exist. It's actually something else. And there's something much larger beyond that
Mm,
that exists. And so we smell stuff, we taste stuff, we see stuff, we hear stuff, and we make the assumption that that's what is.
mm,
And then we make up in our mind that something is going to happen. And oh, it's cloudy. There's a thunderstorm coming. I need to go inside. Right. And so I
right.
do that. The thunderstorm never comes because it's only cloudy. And you miss the opportunity to be outside and do something fun. Instead, you're sitting inside. And I think a lot of times when we're in that defensive posture, like you're talking about, that bear is out there, whether it's real or not, right? That that's where we find ourselves, inside worrying about the thunderstorm that is not only not even coming, it doesn't even exist.
Oftentimes. Yeah. Yeah. You one of the things that reminds me of is some of Paul Tillich's work, the German American theologian. He said human beings are primarily preoccupied with finite things: how much money we have, how big our teams are, how many widgets we've sold, how many locations we have, those kinds of things. And that's where we preoccupy ourselves. And it's where oftentimes we find our identity. And we're always worried about these things. Now, those things are important, right? Sales are important, growth is important, team size, organizational size, that's all important. But he says many people pay little or no attention to the things that are ultimately important to human beings, which are infinite in nature. Things like love, joy, gratitude, peace, the things that I think somewhat ironically, no matter what happens in the world, can never be taken away from us. And I think the real transformative idea here is when we pay more attention to the gratitude, the love, the joy that is inherent within us, and we bring it into the moments of the uncomfortable and the uncertain, it literally transforms what we're seeing. And that unknown, the uncomfortable, is literally the pathway of new results, finding greater impact in the world and connecting more greatly with who we ultimately are.
Do you think that you're where you sit now from a state of understanding and knowledge,
Yeah,
right? Um, that informs your perception of fear, right? What are you scared of?
certainly. Yeah,
Does that change the approach that you take to living your life?
it does certainly.
Okay. So let me ask follow a different question. So let's take the Sterling, and if I were to do a screenshot right now, control
Yeah.
what is it? Control V of you in your life right this moment. And I were then to back up and look at the Sterling whose life was in the midst of the unicorn before everything, the shitstorm hit.
Hmm.
If you were a dispassionate third party, but knowing what you know now, right? You have the same knowledge, and you were to look at today's Sterling and that perception, that understanding of that broader world versus the Sterling that had a very comfortable existence, which would you choose and why?
The one now, not a doubt in my mind.
How come?
Well, I'm like strangely grateful for that breakdown, because what it did is it disconnected me from these external things that I thought were me, that I thought were bringing me some level of happiness, but it was just stuff. And I was able to find not only who I think is more close to who I authentically am, but what actually matters to me. I mean, my work now is far more fulfilling, far more impactful. And I would also say I'm far more joyful. Not in like a superficial happiness sense, but being routinely and regularly connected with this just joy of having the chance to be alive. You know, good, bad, ugly, whatever's happening in the world. I oftentimes find myself seeing like, how is this working for you, Sterling? Like, you get to have this experience. And, you know, it's what we were saying before, like our perspective, our mood is shaping our reality, and therefore giving us a vision on what steps make sense to take. And so I'm far more happy now, more joyful now. Not a doubt in my mind I would pick today versus, gosh, it's like 15, 20 years ago now.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
funny, when you go through really hard things, they always say the lessons are loudest at the edge.
Yeah.
And while I wouldn't wish that experience on other people, the one that you've had,
Totally.
what when you were going through it, what was the worst season ending, life ending, dead end cul-de-sac thing that happened to you, if any?
Yeah, it was when I moved into my parents' house. When I
Yeah, but
literally had no choice, 6 figures in personal debt. What were you gonna say?
yeah, but okay, that happened, but that wasn't the end of the story, right? Yeah, it's something. I look, I had a board member when I had a company that
Yeah,
had the same thing. And when in the worst of the worst before it was over, this board member said, "Steve, what's the worst thing that can happen? They can't eat you."
yeah,
And so there doesn't seem to be any, while it was difficult, Sterling, without a doubt, there was no, you didn't end up in the Box Canyon dead end with the tidal wave rushing down.
you're right. You're right, and, like, literally the turning point, I know the moment because I got out of the shower one day and I literally looked in the mirror and, I had this thought of, "I don't have to be here anymore." And, not to get too heavy on you or the folks living, but that was a choice that I actually confronted,
Yeah.
and maybe obviously turning away from ending it all early. The other option was, well, then where am I gonna go from here? Because I had numbed myself as much as you can legally numb yourself, at least for purposes of this conversation, right? Like, it was so emotionally and psychologically painful, I just didn't wanna feel it anymore. And it was in that bathroom mirror that one morning where I said, this approach that I've taken to try and numb or avoid or deny the pain that I'm in, it is not working. I need to go the other direction. Said very simply, I need to make what has felt very uncomfortable and painful comfortable. And the way you do that is you actively go after the things that are uncomfortable. You face the uncomfortable realities, you have the difficult conversations, you have those hard looks in the mirror to say, look, well, it might not be my fault, but how am I a contributing part of it? You kind of take the power back. And when you can take the power back and say, yeah, I might not be in control of a lot of these things in the world, but I am in control of some things. I'm especially in control of myself. Then all of a sudden, you've got some real paths that start to unfold in front of you.
You know, it's funny because if you think about it,
Hmm.
you strip everything else away. All we have is the ability to choose. That's it.
Agreed.
So we can choose, and if we choose can't, can't means won't. So I can't. So I'm sitting in a room. I'm sitting in a nice room, but it's still a room, right? I can tell myself I can't leave this room because this room is nice and it's safe. And so I won't leave this room. And if I won't leave this room, then that's it. There's nothing else, right? Here I stay.
Yeah.
And I tread water and I essentially mark time because that's what I'm doing. I'm just existing.
Yeah.
And if there's nobody else in my life other than me, right? That's a personal choice. I can choose to exist, right? I don't impact, for better or for worse, anybody else. But at the same time, I'm squandering the gift of consciousness in life that we have been given,
Hmm.
right? Okay, that's our choice. On the other hand, if I choose to leave this room, right? And then when I step out of this room, I can choose to turn left. I can choose to go right. I can choose to go up a set of stairs, down a set of stairs. I can choose to pet my Bernese mountain dog. I can choose all sorts of stuff, right? And then that those choices, I know you guys have a penchant for those great animals too, but
Totally.
the choices become endless. It's infinite, right? But at the same time, if we're doing that without essence, we're still limiting ourselves. And if we do that, not only are we shortcutting our own existence, but we're shortcutting the existence and well-being of the people who are intertwined with us.
Mm.
now and at some point in the future. And that takes us back to that original question: what should be happening because you are here? That doesn't necessarily mean I need to quit my job and become an artist. It simply means maybe I need to have a little bit more courage and motivate others to have a better positive attitude at work, so that when we go into this meeting, we have a greater degree of psychological safety collectively to accomplish things that before we said we can't do that.
Yeah.
We can't do that because our boss won't let us. We can't do that because we'll fail. We can't do, and,
Hmm.
and then it becomes this feedback loop.
Right. Right. Where choice, I would say, is different than a decision. Like if you look at the etymology of decision, it's you're cutting something off. Something's dying. You feel like you have no choice. You have to take this path. Whereas choosing, you're putting all of yourself into it. And I think that where that makes a difference is sometimes we don't get to choose our circumstances. I've got this health condition. I didn't make a decision or choice about that. I just have that. Or the market shifts or something goes on with a team member. And we can end up in this state of avoidance where it sounds like, well, I have to do this. I have to go to this meeting tomorrow. I have to, have this conversation, fill in the blank. And there's no power there because part of us is resisting the reality of the situation. And when part of us is resisting it, we're not fully present. We're not all there. We might be physically in a conversation, but part of us is holding back. When we choose something, we fully choose it, whether we actually decided to have that thing or not. But if we can choose our current situation exactly how it is and exactly how it isn't, that's where we actually start to grow. I always think like discomfort alone is not enough. It's when we open our mind to new ideas, our soften our heart to some of the uncomfortable situations that we're moving through, that those feelings can forever and permanently move through us, leaving us truly free, not circumstantially free, but truly free.
Sterling, it's been, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago, I had a conversation with somebody that was an acquaintance, so not really a stranger. So I asked a question, and what I got was a lot of oral diarrhea.
Hmm.
Was these are all of my grievances and woes about the place that I work at and my current circumstance in life, because
Hmm.
I've been passed over for a promotion, and we needed a new water heater and we couldn't afford it, so I had to take out a high interest loan to do that. And my car is now 8 years old and the paint is peeling in a spot, and I said to this person, okay, well, what scares you? Losing my job. What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, I can lose all my money. Well, what's the worst thing that can happen? We could be homeless. Okay, if that happens, what's the worst thing that can? So you go and you, and then this person finally says to me, "You don't understand the circumstances of my life. You don't
Mm-hmm.
understand because your life is different." Well, we all have our challenges. Yeah, I've lost all of my money. I was hit and ultimately died for a little bit, came back. But I said to him, "But let me tell you a story about somebody else, not me." So I asked this question about a year ago to another individual at a Starbucks in an airport.
Yeah.
And I said, what should be happening? What shouldn't be happening? What are you scared of? And this person said, "I'm not scared of anything." I
Mm.
said, "Really? So what's the hardest thing that's ever happened to you that's changed the fact that you're not scared of anything?" And that's usually what this question I have in my back pocket, right? Is, hardest physically, spiritually, emotionally, that's happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, his demeanor changed, and he kind of,
Mm.
and he said, 2 years ago, I had an argument with my 12-year-old daughter and my wife, and she had been asked out on a date, and at 12, 5th grade, it's too young to go on a date.
Yeah.
And it was only a movie, on a Saturday afternoon, but I just wasn't prepared for that. So I said, no, this was before school. And I said, no, we are not going on this date. And this was on a Friday. She wanted to do it the next day. And so she needed to tell this boy. And I got adamant about it. And then my wife said I was being ridiculous and that I needed to just lighten up a little bit and let her go to a movie in the afternoon. It's not a big deal because there was going to be one of the parents there.
Yeah.
And the last thing I said to her, my daughter, before they left for school was, you're going to go on that date over my dead body. 20 minutes later, they were hit by a dump truck and killed. And he stood there and you could just feel it.
Mm.
And I went, dude, I'm sorry. And I said, that's the hardest thing. And he goes, no, that wasn't the hardest thing. The hardest thing that I had to do was lean into that, embrace it for what it was, and learn to continue my life and forgive myself for what I said because I didn't kill them. And then I needed to take that and do something positive with it so that experience, that terrible, horrible experience, wasn't the end of the story.
Yeah.
And so I told this person that said, you don't understand that. And I said, in contrast, what's so bad about your situation and what would you choose differently? And this person teared up and their response was, I guess I never realized how selfish and short-sighted I was being, because this is what this person said to me. It's easier and more pleasurable to be the victim.
Always. Mm-hmm.
So I think that to bring us back, no matter what concept and mantra, if you will,
Yeah, it is.
Should this be something that when you encounter, a challenge, I can lean into this and I can persevere through it. I will grow from this. I will not quit. I will maybe even learn and enjoy it for what it is, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what you said is right on. It's not just I can as like an option, but it's I will do this no matter what. And I think we can commit to finite things. To go back to Paul Tillage, I will increase my sales by 20%. I will sell my company. I will fill in the blank. But more importantly, not just for your results, but for your soul and your spirit and your own fulfillment, is I will bring joy to this. I will have gratitude. And that's not to say we're all going to be perfect all the time, but when you've got that commitment in place, a real commitment, that's not just a thought in your head. It's you write it down, you share it with somebody. It's a real present commitment for you. It does literally change everything. I mean, when we've got commitments that are held accountable to some degree, we're 95% more likely to realize those things. We need those things in our lives. We need those commitments. We need people around us to hold us accountable, not just to achieving our specific goals, but to showing up how we ultimately want to show up.
Is it fair to say, to bring us home, Sterling, that with the mantra and mindset of no matter what, that what you do, no matter what, no pun intended, no matter what it is, doesn't have to cancel out who you are, the essence of who you are, and even the experiences that you may be going through, good or bad, because back to Hermeticism, as within, so without, as above, so below. Without up, there is no down.
Yeah.
Without hot, there is no cold. Without joy, there is no hate. Without fear, there is no peace.
Yeah.
You need one for the other. So is your essence, can it remain intact no matter what you do in the experiences that you go through?
No question. It was my mom always had these little sayings when we were kids, and she still does. Some of them are really funny, but one that really stuck with me and came back to me at that low point is she said, the way out is through. It means we've got to go through the challenge. We've got to go through the unknown, through the things we're scared of, through shame, grief, whatever it might be. And the results that we're looking for ourselves and the impact we have on others are on the other side. And, here 15 years after my collapse, as much as it sometimes pains me to say it, my mom was right. The way out is through. We've just got to go through no matter what.
Your mom must have been a fan of Marcus Aurelius.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. Big Stoic philosophers over here.
Meditations, but it's true. It is true. Sterling, it has been a joy to have the great opportunity to talk to you and learn from you. So thank you.
Honored to have joined you. I enjoyed this conversation, Steve, and I look forward to keeping it going. Thanks for having me.
Sounds good, man. Take care. Thank you for joining us in this episode. Currently, we plan to drop a new one every couple of weeks. Now, the goal is to get it to a 2-week groove as we get better at this. If you like what you heard or you found it helpful, give us a positive review or subscribe. It's true, it really does help. If you know someone this content might help, please share it with them. You never know the impact a small action can have on somebody's life. If you didn't like the episode, just send us an email and let us know what we can do to improve. You can reach us at info@amplifyflow.co. Or if you know someone who you think would be a good featured guest, just do the same thing. Drop us an email at info@amplifyflow.co. Thanks for spending time with us.